Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Community Development, Housing, and General Government Committee meeting of the City of Winston-Salem this Tuesday, February 15, 2022. Due to the pandemic, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard when there is a vote. It will be necessary to take a roll call vote. A committee member will be recognized, raise their hand, and state their vote. City Clerk, would you please call the roll of the committee?
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Councilmember Mundy.
Present.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here. Thank you so much. Today's agenda, we have 8 consent items, and we have 1 general agenda item. Committee and council, are there any consent items that you would like pulled for discussion? Councilmember Larson.
I could just ask the chair if we have anybody in the audience regarding the 3 demolition projects that would like to speak on this matter, on any of these matters.
Ms. Harris, is Tiffany Harris on, Ms. Tony? Ms. Newman?
Yes, I'm here.
Have we had any contact or feedback from the 3 demolitions on the consent? From the owners?
We had 1 owner to contact us. He is the Mr. Nash regarding 4430 Robin Hood Road. He has requested a VDA for his property and has hired a contractor to make the repairs.
Okay, so that is C5. Let's go ahead and can we go ahead and vote on the consent agenda except for item C5?
Mayor Pro Tem, I think it's
Wait.
C7.
7, Mayor Beth.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the balance of the consent items.
Second.
It is moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Clark and Councilmember Scipio. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes, and the motion passes. Ms. Harris, could we get more of a discussion of item C7, and that is in Councilmember Clark's ward?
Yes. C7. The owner is Alvin Rayvon Nash, 4430 Robin Hood Road. Due process notifications of property violations were sent to the owner as required by ordinance. Minimum housing violations 15. List pendants was filed at the clerk's office on March 18, 2021. Hearing was held February 24, 2021. Repair demolish order expired April 16, 2021. Eligible for consideration June 28, 2021. Estimated cost to repair $50,000. Fair market value $5,000.
Okay, Ms. Newman, I saw where you wanted to comment. Ms. Newman.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Vice Chair Scipio, members of the committee, and members of the council. Ms. Tiffany Harris was able to give you some of the details on this particular one. I was going to just ask if it was agreeable with the council member for that ward in light of the owner's request to do a voluntary demolition agreement, if maybe we would want to continue this for a period of days to see if in fact the owner does step up and make the necessary repairs within the time frame that is usually consistent with the VDA, and then we bring it back to you. But that is certainly at your discretion if you'd like to continue it for the execution of a VDA or if you'd rather move the matter today.
Councilmember Clark.
Ms. Newman, what would be the recommended extension time period?
The city attorney might be able to help me on this. I think it's usually 90 days. I think that's the standard that we do is 90 days. And then we, as I said a moment ago, we continue it for that period of time.
Mhm.
And then if significant progress has not been made at that time because they have entered into the voluntary demolition agreement, then we have the ability to move forward from there.
Okay, I have no trouble with extending it contingent upon receipt of a voluntary demolition. This house has extensive fire damage. I saw the estimate was 50. If that's what it costs to bulldoze it and rebuild it, but it looks like it's in pretty tough shape, but I'm always willing to work with folks, so I'll be willing to do that. And Madam Chair, if you would like, I'd like to make that as a motion that we put in place a 90-day extension contingent upon the signing of the voluntary demolition agreement. And Ms. Carmen has her hand up, so she may want to make.
Yes.
Thank
Just
you.
a moment, Councilmember Clark. Attorney Carmen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Adams. The only question or clarifying point I would like to make is maybe put a time frame on when that VDA is executed, maybe have it executed within the next 30 days instead of us waiting 90 days to find out he's not going to execute it. So if it's done within 30 days, then he gets the full 90 days. If it's not done within 30 days, then we bring it back.
I would make that as a friendly amendment.
Second. May I have a second? Councilmember Scipio. It has been moved and properly seconded. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes. Thank you. We will now go to the general agenda. Would the city clerk please call the first item and the only item?
Item G1, information regarding a resolution adopting the City of Winston-Salem's legislative priorities for the 2022 legislative session.
Ms. Carmen, Attorney Carmen, you're on.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and committee members. What you have before you is the council's proposed legislative package for 2022. I will go through each of the items. The first item in the package is the system development fee bill, which is a carryover from last year. I understand that the General Assembly sort of ran out of time. They had a lot of energy and effort diverted towards the budget. So this is a continuation of an effort from last year. And what this bill does is essentially allow the city or the utility commission to waive system development fees for parcels that are dedicated for affordable housing purposes. So that's the first one. The second bill is also a repeat from last year. You may recall having communications from me last year about the authority of the city to do storm drainage repairs on private property. What this bill does is to give the city clear authority to do that. Otherwise, it could be challenged in terms of proper authority and expenditure of public funds on private property. So this is to address that particular concern. Again, it's a carryover from last year. I think they just ran out of time. So that's why that's included. The next one you may be familiar with. It is a bill that was proposed some time ago. As you all know, based upon what we're doing right now, cities clearly have the authority to engage in remote or virtual meetings during a pandemic or state of emergency. And as you know, the mayor's proclamation or declaration of an emergency is still in effect. So we can have virtual or remote meetings based upon that. When that goes away, that state of emergency goes away, it is unclear as to whether or not a body as a whole, in particular city council as a whole, can meet remotely or virtually. So the purpose of the bill is to clear that up, to allow, if enacted, to allow city councils to basically continue with remote or virtual meetings. It will be up to the council to determine what those circumstances are in terms of when that will occur. One thing you will notice is that in terms of quasi-judicial proceedings, much like now, the parties pretty much have to consent to that. But otherwise, council would pretty much determine what the criteria will be for having remote meetings in a non-pandemic type situation. And let me just say one thing in case there's some confusion. As I mentioned earlier, you do have the authority during a pandemic when a declaration is in place to have a remote meeting, the entire body meeting virtually or remotely. You also have an ordinance on the book that allows for members to participate remotely. However, a majority has to be in place in the meeting chambers. So that means a few members can participate remotely. That's different from what this is intending to do, which is to have the entire body participate remotely. So I wanted to make that clarification. And then the next one, do you have a question?
He's got one more.
Yeah, when she finishes.
Oh, okay. The next one is new to this body, but it's not new for the city because Greensboro had this as part of their legislative package last year and asked me to check with the police department and see if they would be interested. And I said yes. And so I put it as part of council's legislative package this year, which is essentially to allow civilians to investigate traffic crashes. This would be a benefit to the police department to allow that to happen. I think we have representatives from the police department on the meeting as well, or participating in the event there are specific questions. And that's it in terms of the 4 pieces of legislation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Carmen. I saw Councilmember McIntosh and then Councilmember Clark.
I was wondering if this is a point in time that we may want to talk about adding an item to this relating to the Winston Weaver incident. I know there's been some conversation about things that that we'd like to see done from a state level. Are we far enough along to add that to this package? Or do we need to investigate that further and then come up with something later on?
I think we need to investigate it further and come up with something later on. I think you've got both your legislative delegation, perhaps we need to have conversations with, but you also have the State Building Code Council. And this session, which starts either April or May, I don't know that they've determined a date yet, is supposed to be for, quote, non-controversial items. And I can almost assure you that that will be a controversial one. We actually tried before I became city attorney, actually before I became an assistant city attorney, requiring sprinkler systems in the older buildings. And let's just say that that action was not successful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Might be for further discussion later.
So what you're saying is let's wait until we have more information, communication with the appropriate parties that are involved with the fire. Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
I gather, number one, that these are all local bills.
Actually, if you go through the system development fee bill, that is a bill that's statewide. And the reason it's statewide is because when I was doing my research on that one, I heard from a number of municipalities that they were interested in that bill.
Okay.
So I made that one, as you see from the title, authorizing local governments. So it's not just, it's not a city bill.
Okay, yeah. My comment was going to be, wow, even if they're, well, number one, these all seem to be non-controversial, but some of them I would think would have appeal statewide, for example, virtual meetings. But to get them through, it's easier if they are a local bill. Because as long as our delegation's okay with them, they should move through okay. But that's the only one you foresee being a statewide bill.
Well, there are several statewide bills in the package. The stormwater one is statewide as well.
Okay.
The remote one, right now, it is local. It's possible it might change into a statewide one. And then the crash one, I made statewide only because I am aware of at least 2 or 3 other cities that are interested in it. And so where I was advised of a number of cities being interested in the bill, I made it statewide. Where it was kind of questionable, I left it kind of as a local bill, i.e. remote participation. But that could very well end up being a statewide bill. I just have not had the opportunity to gather from other municipalities if they're interested in this particular legislation.
Okay.
Does that make-
My last comment to Mr. McIntosh or Miss Adams may know, are we gonna have the town hall type thing in Raleigh so we can go down and advocate for this?
Well, COVID depending, and the last couple of times we did that, the league did that, we do a dinner.
Yeah,
Versus a,
which is fine. Yeah.
town hall thing. So, I don't know, I don't believe it has been scheduled yet, which means that, we're probably not going to do that in person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And they
thank-
may, and they may put it off until the fall or something like they did have done before. We do know the National League of Cities, like some other organizations, have decided to go live, that they don't offer a hybrid, which, you know, I'm okay with that because I'm going to the NLC. Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, Ms. Carmen, on the citizens traffic investigators, is it a sound assumption to believe that this will require citizens having some type of training in order to become an investigator? It's not like me standing out there and say, here's what I see.
No, I don't think it's like
In
that.
other words, no, Andy Griffith, what's my man that threw the rocks or whatever.
Citizens
arrest.
I can
No.
assure you of that, but we do have police personnel on the call if they want to respond. I was trying to find the names in my text. I'm sure
But
that-
that sounds like a good way to engage citizens, but they would be trained in how to investigate. That's the intent of that, I'm assuming.
It is. I think they're talking about civilian employees. I think Corporal Sheets and Mitchell may be on the call.
So
If you'd like
this is Captain Branshaw, and I have asked both Sergeant Sheets and Corporal Mitchell to be on this call. Unfortunately, we've not done much research into this, as this was kind of a last minute presentation to us. Excuse me, there are some agencies that do it, and so we've not gotten to build a training program or even find out how some of the other agencies as a whole have done it. There will need to be some training, and I'll let Sergeant Sheets speak to that in just a minute. But there's going to have to be some training for our communications folks as well to determine the appropriate resource, whether that be the civilian employee versus a law enforcement officer, kind of gauging how the attitudes on the scene are, the scene safety and some things like that. So it does encompass a lot more training than it would just for how to fill out a crash report, so to speak. And then also some training on when those civilian employees should just kind of back out altogether and alert law enforcement to respond. So I will let Sergeant Sheets speak to some of the standards and such as far as the paperwork is associated with crash reports and what some of that training might entail. Josh, can you go ahead and speak on that a little bit? And sorry to throw you under the bus here.
Captain,
question would come up. But
my apologies to both of you all because I requested your attendance at the last minute.
That's okay. That's all right. Josh is well versed on all things, and so is Corporal Mitchell. So on authoring things crash reports. So guys, go ahead and jump in.
Hey, good evening.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'll let Corporal Mitchell go first.
Yeah. So I guess you can hear me. I can't tell if I'm up or not. I did a little bit of research today in regards to what other agencies and cities have been doing. So Fayetteville has had a citizen crash response unit in place for about 10 years. Wilmington actually started theirs in 2007. And they've both, the sergeants I spoke to at those agencies today spoke highly of how well it has worked out over the years. And Wilmington actually in the past year and a half, increased their numbers from 2, which they started out with, to 6 employees to actually handle the citywide. And Fayetteville has 8. They currently have 7 field positions, but they're slotted for 8. As far as training goes, they go through essentially what is our basic law enforcement training, crash investigation, and then they have a field training part that they go through with an officer who is well versed in traffic crash investigation. So they handle the training either in-house or through a local community college, just as if a recruit would handle through rookie school. And the let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to look through my notes here just to make sure I don't miss anything. They have some other, as far as dealing with de-escalation and things like that, they have specific training on that. If there's ever a situation where they just need to back out and allow an officer to respond. And they are also, I guess it's within some of the bills that have been introduced. They're now trying, originally they weren't allowed to write any citations or anything related to a crash. But I think there's some changes going on with that in the legislature to try to add some of those things in for specific charges, nothing related to misdemeanors or like drive while impaired investigations. And they actually respond to, unless the crash involves some type of major injury, the civilian units will actually handle quite a bit of those crashes. And they estimate, Fayetteville estimated that their civilian unit handles 30% of the crashes, and in Wilmington, with just the two, they estimated that they handled 25% of their citywide crashes. So it was, I spoke to a communications operator that said that it's been great for them because it's freed up a lot of officers to be able to go out and handle other police matters. That's something that a civilian, instead of something that a civilian would be able to take care of. Is there any other questions or anything specific to it?
Thank you all for what you do for our community. And I would suspect this is another initiative that we're probably looking at because of the shortage of public safety officers and others to free you up to do the real work, which all of us real work, but that we as citizens and others are wanting to step up to help us with it. Thank you for doing the research on it. Councilmember Larson.
Yes, I think it's a very interesting program. I'm kind of curious if 30% and 25% of the accidents are being covered by the civilians. I'm assuming that means that our sworn policemen still have to go through the full training. And if the goal is long-term to eventually transfer this whole responsibility over to civilian expertise, have them as a separate operation within the police department. Is that sort of where we want to go with this eventually?
I certainly think that's a possibility, but I certainly don't want to answer that for the chief of police, but that's certainly within the possibility of this particular bill.
And the question would be, how many people would we need to fill those slots? Which theoretically would be easier to fill those slots than sworn police slots.
I would think so, yes. The maximum number, I'm not really sure. I would assume we'd probably start out with a few, and depending upon the need, it would probably grow from there. But I certainly think it would free up those other slots.
Can we get a salary range for these positions?
We can certainly attempt to do that. I'll get with the chief and HR, see if we can get that information.
Thank you
and
very
this
much.
Is just for information.
Yeah, it's just for information.
Right.
Are there any other comments or questions? All right, again, thank you all so much. We had a short agenda today, the first time in a long time. And this meeting is adjourned.
Wow.